Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Small Business Breakthroughs. This is presented by the Ohio Small Business Development Center at Columbus State Community College in partnership with the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center. We are pleased and excited today to bring Rick Coplin to the program. I've known Rick for a number of years. Rick has a long history in the entrepreneurial space and working with entrepreneurs. And we're looking forward to being able to kind of catch up with some of the things he's done, but also kind of tap his brain for some of his experiences. And we're going to get started with Chaz Frutel, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the benefits of the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center and how you can get engaged with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Mike, and it's always a pleasure to be partnering with small business development centers and you and your team in doing these types of events. The Dublin Entrepreneurial Center was started back in 2009 and had partners going way back, including SBDC and Rick Copeland, that used to be with Tech Columbus back in that day, that turned into Rev One Ventures. But SBDC and Tech Columbus were fantastic partners when we launched the deck, and excited to still have those partners with us. We were just talking earlier how Rick and I had offices right next to each other in the corner of the original deck location. We're at a newer location now over the last 11 years or so, but in that original location, and we just used to bounce a lot of great ideas off each other, and grew from just 3 of us that were in the original deck location to now we've graduated over 200 businesses over the last 15 years. It'll be 15 years next month that the deck has been in business. Still, if not the largest, one of the largest entrepreneur centers in the United States. So we're proud of that, and currently have about 100 businesses that we host at the deck right now. But we're proud of all of our tenants and the space that we're able to provide. The city of Dublin did a study about 7+ years ago, and for a Class A facility and all the amenities that the deck provides, we were listed as one of the least expensive entrepreneur centers in the United States, especially then when you put all the included things like conference rooms and Wi-Fi and printing and all 24/365 access that we provide. It's just been fantastic. And we also have over 85% of our tenants that have graduated from the deck, the over 200, are still in business, which is amazing. And that beats the national average. So by the support of the city of Dublin, by the support of so many, including Rick back in the early days, and you, Mike, and your team along the way, we've been able to have some great success, and looking forward for many more years.
Great. Well, thank you, Chaz, and want to announce, got breaking news. We break news here that Chaz will be stepping down as the director of the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center at the end of the month. If you watch the Small Business Breakthrough with Chaz or have heard us in the past, Chaz has somewhere around 300 or 400 businesses that he's currently running. I'm not sure the exact number now, but Chaz has a lot of stuff. I'd say he was probably the quintessential serial entrepreneur, and he's still going to be around here at the deck. He's going to be accessible for individuals that are looking for the support that he can bring to them. But his official time as the director is going to end just short of the 15th anniversary. So we are, I'm, blessed to have been able to work with you all this time, and are really excited about, your future endeavors. I know you've got a lot of stuff in the fire right now, and you're working on a lot of things, and it's really exciting to see you doing this. And Rick, if you want to jump in here because you've been working with him for a long time too, if you have anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center would not exist without Chaz. If he had not been there in the beginning, I doubt that it would have succeeded in the way that it has. And his influence and the people that he's brought in to be involved with the deck over the years have made that possible. And also, Chaz is one of the um, best people that I've ever worked with. Fond memories. We laughed a lot, we joked around a lot, and we also were pretty serious. Had big goals, and a lot of those got accomplished because Chaz was really good and is really good at finishing things. My strengths are in ideation and thinking about stuff. He dismissed most of my ideas, took a few good ones, added some good ones of his own in, and made the deck what it is. So it was fantastic working with Chaz. Lifelong friend came out of that. And I'd say the same thing of you, Mike, too. It's been wonderful getting to know you over all these years.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. Jess?
I certainly thank you both and appreciate that. And boy, it's just nice to have a phenomenal team together that the city of Dublin really put together before I came along. But then to be able to work with that team ongoing after I moved into the deck, and then the city approached me and said, "Hey, would you mind coming and running this for us?" So it's been a wonderful relationship all around, and I think it's just a blessing. It's the first entrepreneur center in Central Ohio. And now look what Central Ohio has. Every community has got, co-working space and different spaces to be able to support entrepreneurship. And we knew that would happen, right? We knew that Dublin would just lead the way, but we knew that would happen, and it's fantastic to see who else is out there, and it's a blessing to be a part of that and know that new people starting businesses and developing businesses along the way, that you're able to go to some place local and be able to get support and be able to get guidance and SBDC involved all over the place to be able to make that happen. And it's just been a treat. And like Miss said, I've got 7 businesses now, and noble network of owners, business leaders, and entrepreneurs is a lot like what we do at the deck. We help people start and grow businesses, from scratch. But we do that, outside the deck and inside the deck. So it's something that we do a lot with, working with students too, middle and high school students. And we've got a great program coming up here, April 20th and 21st. It's a 3.5-month program, free, where students come, and it's including SBDC. Rick might be coming to present for us too, but we help from ideation clear till pitching to real investors and getting real money awarded to them. So we're very excited with what we have. But I got to stop talking because we all want to hear Rick, not me. So it's great, great introduction, and thank you so much. And look forward to hearing what you got to say, Rick. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you very much. Well, let's go ahead and continue on. Want to introduce Rick Coplin. As we've already expressed, Rick has done a phenomenal job in the entrepreneurial space here in Central Ohio. I think he is one of the key pieces as we've gone to build this in the last 15 to 20 years. And I will say, Rick, that I think having you on here has really brought out some of the OG entrepreneur people. I mean, Bob Cohen's here. I haven't seen
I saw
Bob
that.
in years. So I mean, it's great to see some folks jumping in here, and this is really exciting for everybody who's participating in the session today. Is on here for the live. If you have questions, please put those into the chat, and Bruce and I will keep an eye on those and make sure that we get those answered for you as we go forward. So, Rick, let's kind of jump in here. Maybe you can kind of start out with a little bit of your origin story here, and kind of give us a little bit about your background and and really kind of what you're doing now, because I think what you're doing now is super exciting.
All right. I'll give a quick synopsis that starts with the entrepreneurial phase of my life. So I left big corporate 25 years ago, joined a startup because I'd gotten bored in a big corporate situation, We rode that roller coaster for 6 years. We were, I think, the third largest raise in Central Ohio, or maybe all of Ohio, when we raised money in 2001, 2002. At that time, there were a couple of others that had raised a ton of money. We raised a little bit, but at that time, there were very little funding opportunities in Central Ohio. Today, it is radically different. And thanks to organizations like Rev1, the SBDC, the Ohio Tech Angels, and other groups that have come into Central Ohio, there is plenty of capital for entrepreneurs. And it is an exciting time. If we could wind back the clock to 24, 25 years ago, none of us would have guessed that Central Ohio would produce unicorn companies. So that means over $1 billion in valuation. Those companies started in that late 2000s, early 2010s world and grew quick. Some have already tanked, but some are going strong. And it's a vibrant entrepreneurial place to be now. And so I was at Rev1 for about 8 years, left that as our kids' lives were changing and our needs changed, went out on my own. And so now I get to work with business owners exclusively. I help them be the leaders that their company and their teams and their family deserve. And then I also get to run Denison University's consulting program and the entrepreneurship program. As a matter of fact, a couple weeks from now, we're having our pitch gala. We have 22 teams that'll be pitching across 4 pitch tracks. We're going to award about $10,000 to those teams this year. And one of our teams is in process of raising $750,000 in their 3rd years of existence. So I'm super proud of those guys. Every student we get to work with is a ton of fun. So the work I get to do with my business owner clients is the most rewarding work I've ever done in my life. The work I get to do with Denison University students is the most fun I've ever had. So I'm in a pretty good space right now.
No, it sounds great. It sounds great. Hey, let's take a step back and talk a little bit more about your startup experience. Now, obviously, that was that was probably 18, 19 years ago, right?
Yeah, the founder started the company in 1999,
Okay.
and he was joined by the
And
co-founder.
that was perfect timing because then the
Oh yeah, right
venture
before
bubble.
the big flop. His co-founder joined about a year later. I joined, I think, in 2002. So I was number 3. We grew to about 10 people. What we did is we did information sharing between law enforcement agencies. So we were the first in the country to make it possible to get picture-based information down to the cruiser level. And this was right at the very beginning of cell phone technology and other things that were making that possible. We could also match fingerprints at the cruiser level as well. We rode that until the fall of 2007. 4 months before the Bear Stearns collapse, we sold, and the timing was fortuitous. I think if we'd waited 6 months, we never would have sold and we would have gone out of business. But because of that just lucky timing, company's still in business today, and I'm super proud of that. I don't have any ownership interest or any involvement anymore, but I'm just super proud that it's still there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say some of the critical differences is between, we already mentioned a little bit of it, but being a startup, growth, venture type business and the entrepreneurs involved in it, then, and we talked a little bit about the funding availability,
Yep.
and now, what do you see as some of the key differences?
So I think some of the key differences are simply in the volume of people that are here in Central Ohio. We knew very few other entrepreneurs when we were getting started. And frankly, the 3 of us knew nothing about being entrepreneurs. We were learning on the fly. And so we didn't really have a whole lot of people to talk to. Now, you can go to an event in the Columbus area almost every day of the week where there are entrepreneurs who have been there and done that. They've had successes, they've had failures, and to a T, they are all helpful. This is such a supportive community across the board. It's a great place to start and grow a company.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so different because back then, one of the things that I was doing is running the Columbus Venture Network, which is a venture capital association. So that's how I got to know you and the company and the other founders. And it was definitely a different animal. I just remember through it wasn't Tech Columbus. What's the one that Aura ran over there? Off OSU, SciTech. And they were you know, doing what they could to do early stage capital. And, we're talking now what, $100,000, trying to get something to people to
Right.
kind of move. And
One of our early
now
investors
it's
was
yeah,
SciTech.
yeah, yeah. And now it's so much different in terms of the venture environment here. I would echo what you're saying, just in general, the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Central Ohio is definitely strong, and I think it's definitely the strongest of any place in Ohio. I don't think there's any question about that. This is one of the hottest entrepreneurial markets available, and I think part of that is that, yeah, there's more funding available. We are close to the state capital, and we are the state capital, and they're doing a lot of different things, but it's just the amount of people, the amount of organizations, the amount of I feel support um, for individuals that are looking to do this here in Central Ohio. I think is unmatched um, any place in Ohio. Mhm.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And the main difference, I have to keep coming back to just the people that are here. There were a number of people that were starting companies in that early 2000s era that ended up exiting and going off to other things. Maybe they started another company, or maybe they became investors. Our sale wasn't big enough for us to become investors, unfortunately, so I had to keep on being and doing entrepreneurial stuff. But all of that stuff, all of those people have made it such a significant difference in Central Ohio today that if any one of a handful of them were missing, we might be in a totally different space.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
grateful for everybody that was part of that early rush to build companies.
Yeah, for sure. And if you look behind me, so you see the deck banner, you
Yep.
see the sign on the wall. That's actually the tombstone from the first round of the Ohio Tech Angel Fund. And
There were
I
some,
think
one of
I
the
think that
best.
made a big difference too. I mean, to have, groups of high net worth individuals that would come together to create this fund, you know, all the credit, in my opinion, really goes to John Houston, who recently passed away. But I mean, I don't know that we would be even where we are today without the work that John did and the
Yeah.
team that really put that together.
Not at all. Yeah, kudos to John. He was an amazing individual. And what was really going on is that individuals were learning how to be investors, and John was leading the way. And individuals were learning how to be entrepreneurs. And in that cauldron, things started to happen. A lot of companies started and tanked. A lot of companies started and went forward. Lots of repeat entrepreneurs. So yeah, John was pivotal in those early years. And OTAF, Ohio Tech Angels, actually turned us down for investment at that point in time. So they managed to avoid a bad investment, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was again another interesting time where everybody was really trying to feel their way through this and figure out how the process worked and different things like that. And the first round of that I think is 1.4 million, and then they went on to multiple rounds of that. But without the work of you know without the work of Tech Columbus, with SciTech, OSU, and a lot of other players, NCT Ventures. I think Rich and the work that he did, bringing in pretty significant amount of money early on to the community and putting it on the map. I think that made a big difference too. That investors outside of Columbus would actually look now to Central Ohio.
That's right. That's right.
So, so, yeah, so let's go on. We do have a question from Kenneth Wright. Um, his question is, it says, seems that most of the funding options for growth are in the tech exclusive space, which matches kind of the venture space. Are there resources, funding, guidance for non-tech companies? So, I'm assuming that obviously there's all kinds of resources, and especially on the debt side, obviously the SBDC, there's a lot of different players. to support non-tech companies. But if we're talking about funding outside of debt, what would you speak to that? Mhm.
Yeah, so there are always funding opportunities, and it's a matter of an entrepreneur rooting those out sometimes because everybody wants to think of venture capital first. And that's great, but most everybody's way too early for venture capital. And VC firms generally invest in very narrow areas. And two different VC firms can be completely different investors and have different investor portfolios. And so when we were pitching our company, I think we pitched about 400 times because we didn't really investigate the investors that we were pitching and trying to find the right investors for our vertical of business. I think if we had done that and understood the investing in venture capital world a little bit better and the banking world, we would have pitched maybe half that and probably raised 2 to 3 times what we did. It all worked out, but man, did we put a lot of effort because we didn't learn the business of investing before we tried to raise funds. And so I would say that's number one, learn the business of investing, learn what investors are looking for, network with everybody, find out what people are investing in or where they have gotten funds. If somebody's in a similar business, ask them, how did you fund your business? And there is no difference to me in the entrepreneurial initiative of people who go on to raise venture capital firms and those who bootstrap a business and turn it into something. It's all that same effort. It's just a matter of focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if Bruce can track this down for us, maybe put in the chat. I know sometime in the next couple of months, the United States Patent and Trademark Office is going to be coming, I believe it's them, coming and doing a all-day program here in Dublin. And they're going to be talking about intellectual property protection and a lot of different things. But part of that's also going to be tied into SBIR, those kind of fundings, as well as some private equity conversations and some debts and things like that. So Bruce is going to see if he can track that down. I'm not even sure it's publicly promoted yet, but I think that'll be an interesting play. And you guys keep an eye on the SBDC site because we'll make sure that it gets up there so we can see that. But that could be an interesting piece too. And then and obviously on the debt side, we do as the SBDC a lot of work with entrepreneurs that are looking for funding on the debt side. I think last year we helped businesses source over $13 million worth of funding. And we don't have any of our own money, so it makes it even trickier to pull that off. So yeah, we have that.
One of my women business owner clients, it has a franchise operation that to date she's bootstrapped. But she is looking at raising some funds and has found a couple of interesting investors that are investing based on her revenues and expecting a return for the investors they have in their funds and are flexible on payback terms and all this stuff. She is not venture investable. She never will be. But I believe that there are new options that are happening and that are growing in various areas around the country that are addressing this big gap between debt financing and venture financing. And a lot of, say Tech Columbus addresses that gap for technology companies and some environmental companies and materials companies, but there's a whole swath of companies they can't invest in because of their focus. Other investors are starting to pick up and fill those gaps. So I think really we're about maybe a decade away from a dozen other options that will make sense for non-venturable companies. And we're just starting to see some evidence of that.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head. There is a difference between, kind of a traditional growth company,
Yep.
and the way that they accelerate their revenue growth and a high tech venture company. Now, is also a difference between the success and failure of those two pieces too. So, the odds, in my opinion, the odds of a more traditional company being successful in the long term is probably higher because there's not the expectations, there's not the need to quickly get market share and revenue and things of that nature. But the ones that do hit, that's where there's some level of success there.
That's right.
Um, can you speak a little bit? Um, we always have this conversation when we talk about tech investing. I mean, this concept of so you've got the owner, you got the startup owner. They start, they launch, they bootstrap. Maybe they get some friends and family money, or maybe even some individuals, and then it's time to actually start talking to a little bit more professional money,
Right.
whether that's like the High Tech Angel Fund, other angel groups, funds, or venture funds, early stage or whatever. Um, this concept of basically, I mean, you're selling equity in the company. You're not giving away equity. You're not doing that. Things like that. I don't think everybody always looks at it that way. But what's your take on how the entrepreneur should go looking at that?
So early on, you're exactly right. The three F's are what we refer to as the early investors. So friends, families, and fools. And that's kind of a tongue-in-cheek expression, but that really is how it goes because it's unprofessional investors. These are individuals in an unprofessional sense that are not accustomed to investing and losing money. The first thing that investors understand is that, you know what? Odds are I'm going to lose every penny I invest. So investors generally, especially VC firms, and to some extent angels, are swinging for the fence in every investment. Now, they know mathematically that 7 out of 10 investments are going to tank. They're not going to get anything back. One or two, they might get something back, and one or two might return enough to cover all of their losses and then some. And that's essentially how VC works. And so when a business owner is raising funds early and they're not venturable yet or may never be, they turn to friends and families or their own funds. They might mortgage their home. I think our founder did that. I'd have to ask and make sure, but I'm pretty sure he did that. That was scary. But what happens is when somebody does go down that route and they begin to raise funds, they begin to grow, and they might be able to raise, say, some private placement funds from an individual angel, which is what we ended up doing, or from an angel group. They have a small group of investors who have most likely unrealistic expectations about getting their money back and how much they're going to get back. And almost always, there's nothing in writing. So I would say everything that an entrepreneur does from raising funds perspective should be treated as a professional investment. Everything should be in writing. The entrepreneur should be upfront with family members and everybody. Hey, most likely outcome is we're going to crash and burn. But if this works, you might get a few pennies back. And I think just being realistic up front, but having everything in writing. At Rev One, we had several companies that came to us that had gone down that path. And when we were getting ready to make investments, we first had to clean up the arrangements that they had made with family members and others. And they had what's called a messy cap table. So the capitalization table listed the people that were on it. Nothing in writing. We always had to clean that up. It was expensive for the entrepreneur. We didn't pay for that. The entrepreneur did. And so I would say get everything in writing and continuously learn about funding and how money is fueling your company and actually how it might be holding it back. I think if we had raised a lot of money early on, like some of the companies are starting to do in Central Ohio, we would have been less scrappy, less efficient, and less focused on actually producing results for our clients. As it was, we had to be really scrappy, and that paid off eventually.
Yeah, I mean, you see that all the time when companies get, these big venture dollars in, oftentimes they'll lose track of a lot of the fundamentals and different things like that. Way back in the day, I mean, you always heard those stories of the entrepreneur that got the venture funding, and the next thing you know, they've got the expensive office furniture and the high end workspace and all that kind of stuff. And I'm assuming that's not why people are giving people money. They're giving people money so that they can scale and grow.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we were super scrappy. We got everything secondhand. We didn't even make business cards for a while. We had a crappy website. We were so focused on delivering to our first customers because we knew that if we didn't do that, none of the other stuff would matter. And
Yeah.
so spend money only on your customers' outcomes.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if you remember the stories Will Schroeder used to tell
Oh yeah.
about his first company, and they were above the Newport down in the campus area. And they had an investor coming in. So this was like probably what, 97, 98, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
They had an investor coming in. They didn't know anything about this. They were just a bunch of college kids. And they literally went out and bought phones and um, at the time, fax machines and copiers and all this from the warehouse at OSU.
Yep.
And they put them in the building in the office. And none of them worked. But when the investor came in, it looked like they had some sort of high end thing going on. But really, they just had these intermortgage props to make it look like they were working.
Oh, totally. We did some of that early on as well, because you have to look like you're a professional operation,
Right.
even if you're waking up every day going, I'm not sure I can pay rent today. And for us, one of the funny things was we had our server stack in a closet in an office building that was not designed to support servers. So we had drilled a hole in the closet ceiling and installed a fan to suck air out of that room. So it was sucking in whatever air conditioning we had to keep that room cool. If we started the microwave, we could shut down our servers because it was on the same circuit. So we had to learn that by trial and error a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the great stories. And to be honest with you, I mean, that stuff still happens. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you're not going to be able to go from generally, I have an idea, give me a couple $1 million. I mean, that doesn't tend to work. Even, you hear all the stories about, Silicon Valley and all that. And I don't know that's happening out there now, but
Well, Mike, I do have a friend on the West Coast. He was one of the founders of AdMob that
okay.
sold to Google, and that became Google's one of their a big piece of their search engine and their ad system. He will sit down with entrepreneurs to talk to them about their idea and hand them a $50,000 check, no writing, and say, "Let's get back together in a month and see where you are." Now he can do that because he has more money than he knows what to do with, which is why he does that. But that
Right.
is so rare.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, and then I think especially in Central Ohio and in the Midwest, I mean, I think there's an expectation you're going to build out some level of infrastructure and you're going to be able to, show the path to market that's very clear and what you're going to be able to do that. And I think the other thing that is always important, I think people get confused on this, that one of the things that investors are really looking for is a team that can execute this stuff.
Right.
And if you've not done this before, um, and you don't really understand this, I mean, I would not be going and talking to investors because they're going to see through that really fast, and that could be a problem for you down the road.
100%. Teams really matter. In our startup, we hired a couple of sales guys, gave them salaries, and the two founders and myself sold more than they did over the span of about 2 years. And oddly enough, we never noticed. So,
Yeah, no doubt. So, all right, cool. So, again, anybody has any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. But I want to move a little bit on here, and I want to talk a little bit more about kind of what you're doing now with your clients and the businesses you're working with and helping them grow. And I think a number of the businesses here in the deck, are coming to a point where they're ready to really start to take off and maybe move from that founder operating to shifting into the into a more of a growth mode, maybe not a venture growth mode. But what do you see as the difference between the owner of this kind of early stage um, company that you know the owner's running a lot of stuff, they're moving stuff, they're doing things, and then once they kind of take that shift over the valley of death, for lack of a better word, and they shift over to they need to shift systems to be able to actually grow and operate.
I think the most important thing is for a founder to grow in front of the company. So in the investing world, everybody does, they'll replace founding CEOs around the time of a Series A investment or Series B at the latest because the founders have failed to grow in front of the company. And if you're not learning, if you're not a student of finances, if you're not a student of HR, if you're not a student of your customers and all of that, growing yourself, how do I become a better leader? How do I lead one person? How do I lead 10 people? And learning that constantly, you're going to eventually fall behind what the business requires of you as a leader, and the business will slowly starve to death. I've seen that happen over and over and over again. So the very first thing is the entrepreneur has to focus on themselves and take on the mindset that I am a student and be that student and seek out that knowledge and try things, experiment, learn. Because if you're not learning, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me a little about the companies you work with. I mean, they may not be dealing with investment. They're I don't want to say organically growing because they're probably past that. I mean, they're just growing and they have a team and they have a whole thing, it's talk about that and some of the issues that they deal with.
Okay. I have a real passion for entrepreneurs and early stage companies, but they have no money and they're not going to pay me. So occasionally I'll take on an entrepreneur that I really like and I'll work with him just like I do with a client. But I realized as I was leaving Rev 1 to do this that I needed to move down the food chain. So my typical client has been in business 10 to 11, 12 years. Longest term client's been in business over 30 years. And by the way, his employees, their tenure averages 25 years. So he's been really good. But the average client at that 10 to 12 year spot, they have been there and done that. They know how to survive. They have struggled meeting payroll. They have had events happen to them and their company that would threaten the very existence of what they're doing, and somehow they've pulled it out. And typically what happens is they seek me out because they know that there's more on the table for them, for their company and their team in terms of growth and opportunity. And they're mired in the day-to-day operations of the business and they're not quite sure how to get to those next steps. And so that's typically the client I will work with. So I've worked with clients, I've worked with law firms, engineering firms, manufacturing firms, which are my absolute favorite. I love manufacturing environments, and a handful of others. And mainly it's around what are the steps I need to take as an owner to push my company, push myself further along and yield better results. And it is rewarding. I've had one of my favorite clients. We've worked together since late 2015. Don't tell Rev One. I started working with him before I left, but I've worked with him since late 2015. A few years ago, he sent a text to me that he'd just come back from an 8-day cruise with his wife and 3 kids. He did not take any phone, computer, or anything with him. Was completely separated from the business, and he came back and it was running just fine. And that was what we'd been working for, that you need to have a business that can run without you. And that's another part of what I think is that growing in front of the company and becoming the leader that the company needs is the company can operate without you. Get out of the details. Be the person that's looking at what's the vision? How am I communicating that inside of the company? What does my team need to learn and how do they need to grow in order for the company to grow? How do we attract the right customers and not customers who will just write us a check? All those questions. And so when I get texts like that, man, is that rewarding.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, um, when a company kind of grows and they get to that point where they've put the systems in place so that they can operate, that they can grow. I mean, it's got to be tough for that founder in many cases to kind of let go of the reins. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know that you're working with a lot of these owners.
It's super tough to do that. And I think as an owner, when you make your first hire, the very first thing you have to know is this person that I'm bringing in is not going to love this company like I do. They're not going to be 100% bought in. They're coming in because they really like what I'm doing, but that's a big difference. And they're coming in, hopefully, that they're bringing in skills you don't have. Always look for people who can't, who might be able to do what you can do, but do things you can't. Don't hire people just like you. And the wider dispersion of people you bring in with a wider dispersion of skills, the better off your company is going to be. Now, those skills have to match what you're doing or what
Right.
you're doing in the future. But think in terms of who can do this better than me so I can stop.
Yeah. No, we didn't prep this, so if you don't have anything, what are a couple of books that you would recommend to the folks that are watching this, that are looking to build companies and grow companies? You have a couple that you really like?
Yes. So if you're early on, if you're just starting out with an idea, I always recommend a book by Pat Flynn, and it's called Will It Fly?
Okay.
That book is a step-by-step reflection of Pat starting several businesses. He and I have met a couple of times. I wouldn't call him a friend. We just met. But I think it's one of the best startup books for somebody to go through in a systematic way and evaluate good idea, bad idea, and to start to grow. Once you're growing, I would absolutely read Gino Wickman's Traction to
Yeah.
understand that a business requires both a visionary and an operator. And then you build your team around that. And then as you're starting to hire and grow people, there's a book that came out, I think in 2022, Pat Lencioni, who's one of my favorite authors. They have produced a personality assessment called The Working Genius. Book has followed on that with the same title. I highly recommend that book. As a matter of fact, we're going to start incorporating that into our work with our consulting teams and our startup teams at Denison to look at work styles and who does what really well. Early on in this, I mentioned, hey, I was really good at ideas and that, and Chaz was really good at evaluating those ideas and rejecting most of them and then actually getting things done. I'm not a get at things done guy. I'm an idea guy. I can evaluate some ideas, but somebody else needs to take that ball and run with it. And everybody has this dispersion of what Pat Lencioni would call the six geniuses. And I happen to be early in the cycle. Some of the best people I've ever worked with are later in that cycle, and you absolutely need somebody with every one of those geniuses in your company from start to finish. So that book alone is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Traction is one of my favorite books.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's really a great book that helps you think through stuff. And Chaz introduced me to another Wickman book, this Entrepreneurial Leap book.
Yes.
Um, this is really good if you're trying to assess, do you have what it takes to kind of be this entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, different things like that. Chaz uses this book in his Noble Academy training programs that they do periodically. I think they've got one coming up in Marysville, not too far in the future. We're involved in that. We do the market assessment and evaluation components of that, but he uses that book in there, and he's got a lot of stuff that's tied with that. So if anybody's interested in that, you should check that out. I don't know if Chaz has the link that he might want to put into the chat for that.
Yeah,
Um,
excellent
but
resource. I have a funny story behind that. So when that book came out, I took the assessment that comes along with it, and Gino is really specific that if you're not scoring a 90 or above, you're probably not an entrepreneur. So I scored an 88, and I have Carrie Oberbruner. I happen to know Gino. I think through Carrie or somebody else. But so I called Gino and I said, "Oh man, I got to tell you, I'm going to go back to cube farms. I think some giant company where I can just sit in a cube will be much better." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I only scored an 88. I'm not an entrepreneur." So we just got into this kind of fun, heated argument over that. But that book is really good for identifying what it takes to step out and be an entrepreneur.
yeah, absolutely. And when we think about those books and, like that book and things of that nature, how would you define the difference between this kind of entrepreneur, the 90, Mhm,
Yep.
and, the small business owner? Mhm.
Ooh, that's a great question. I think that there are a whole lot of reasons why people would start a business. So, for instance, for me, when I left big corporate world, I just wanted out. And something brand new like a startup seemed like a really fun idea. Turned
Yeah.
out that I loved it and it got in my blood and I'm never going back. So I think that depending on the reasons you get into entrepreneurship and depending on how you approach your business, are you hands-on all the time or are you constantly growing in front of your business and bringing in other people to do things that you really shouldn't do? Are you freeing yourself from things that are just drudgery? I think that's a big difference. Entrepreneurs generally will shed that drudgery much quicker than somebody who's not thinking like that. And so any business owner has to approach their business from the question of what does the business require of me as CEO? And if I were hiring a CEO, would I hire me? And then once you kind of answer those questions, what else does the business require to not only just exist, but to thrive and to grow and to provide incomes for you and everybody who's working for the company?
Yeah, for sure. We're going to run out of time here really quick. I always say that these things go so fast. I need to expand this to do kind of a Joe Rogan thing for 2 or 3 hours, right? Um, let's talk about kind of the consulting again. When you talk about these high impact owners,
Mhm.
um, what responsibilities do you see these high impact owners having beyond just the bottom line as it relates to employees or the community or whatever that happens to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way I approach it with my clients is that the bottom line is the last thing in terms of the priorities that you're thinking about. And I know that that sounds upside down from where most people would go because frankly, numbers matter. If you're not meeting your numbers or you're not making money, you can't survive. But that financial piece is really the last thing. But most of us start at that financial piece and we skip over the fact that we need to be able to communicate broadly a vision over and over and over again. This first client that I mentioned, he happens to be an engineering firm out in New Mexico. I used to tell him, dude, you just need to walk around the office with a coffee cup and say, how can I help you? You know what?
Yeah.
We're not just doing drawings. We're building this big building. Just tell him, just walk around and ask. So it starts with vision. Where are you headed? And can you bring other people in with excitement to execute on that vision? You are not the execute person. Everybody else you bring in is going to be a part of that execution. And then I think the next thing is you need to look at the people that you're bringing in. How do I help them grow in front of what the company demands of their current position and to get to a future position as we grow? I think the next thing, well, also right in there is the owner absolutely must drive culture. You can't bring people in and think that culture is just going to be good. It will go to the lowest common denominator. If you bring in somebody who's negative or is gossipy or whatever, that will set the culture bar right there, and the whole company becomes that. So the owner has to drive culture at all times. So these three things, and then I think as an owner goes down the path, they have to accept that business is full of ambiguity, but they still have to make decisions every day. So you have to get used to having a certain amount of ambiguity, making decisions with not enough information. And honestly, a lot of times it's crossing your fingers and saying, I hope this works. And when
Right.
it doesn't work, you have to stop doing that super fast and do something new. And then the other piece of that, we talked about the entrepreneurial community. You have to be involved in the community and surround yourself with other business owners, not necessarily in the same vertical where you are, but who are kind of at that same stage. They might have 10 employees or 50 employees, but they're facing similar problems, and you need to communicate with them because you can learn from them and they can learn from you. And if you do these things, what will happen is that the revenues and other things will fall into place because your team's driving it. You're setting vision. Your team's driving the things that make the revenue happen. You've set the culture that makes the revenue possible. You're building relationships that makes the revenue possible. All of that stuff boils down to the finances. Intuitively, we start with the money first, but if you do those other things in advance of that, the money piece becomes easier and clearer.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to kind of start to wrap up here. I've got one more big question for you. But before we do that, I want to again, everybody who's here live, want to point you to the chat and some of the resources that we put into the chat. Um, And then for those of you that may be watching this on YouTube, I'll be sure to put those in the show notes after we're done, and that way you'll be able to get on those. And I want to thank, as always, the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, and thank Chaz again for all the work he's done over the years here at the deck, and wish him the best going forward. Now, having said that, he's already doing all of these other things. So, he's already doing the best, doing great with that. But, I want to thank him for all of that. And for those of you that are interested in connecting to the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, you can go to the website, which is deckanddublin.com, and check that out. Susie Gillian is on here also, and she would be able to assist you as you if you're looking for space, or just place to kind of call home, in a virtual setting or hotspotting or whatever. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on here. There's a lot of community here, and it's a great opportunity for you to mix and mingle with other entrepreneurs that are doing similar things to what you're doing. So I would encourage you to check that out. And thanks as always to the SBDC team, and thanks to Bruce Walters for all of his work in getting this up and running. And we're really happy with what we're able to do here with the small business breakthroughs, and we're hoping that everybody's getting value out of this. And as we continue to embark, I think we've done 36 or 37 episodes of this. It certainly doesn't seem that long, but it's great for me because I get to talk to friends, and sometimes you haven't talked to them for a while, and it's kind of like connecting with Rick here. This is like old times, and as you can tell, I mean, I have questions, but I don't know if we covered all the questions or we added more questions.
I
So
couldn't tell you.
yeah, just based on the conversations we've had over the years. So, and again, Rick, I want to thank you for one, jumping on here with us. I really appreciate that. And, and all the things that you've done, leading up to this. I think the work that you're doing at Denison to really support the youth that want to go into business, consulting, entrepreneurship, I think that's making a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, we're having, it's just so much fun. I had one young woman, I'll tell a quick story. She's part of our consulting program, and our consulting program is hard. I think this was her fourth or fifth client. It's a very hard client. She came to me after that, and I'm trying not to tear up because I usually do when I tell the story, but she came to me and she said that, and she comes from a blue collar background. Neither of her parents had gone to college, and she came to Denison, and she told me that because of that experience in the previous three projects, she was now seeing herself in a different light. She was seeing herself with greater potential and greater possibilities. And she's graduating this semester. I think she's got 4 or 5 job offers. She's got some amazing scholarship opportunities for postgraduate studies if she wants to do that. And she's made all of that happen on herself. And there have been a few things along the way where she's seen herself in a different light. I love that. That's exactly what should happen for anyone who's going to college.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So, my last question, again, I think this is probably the most important question for everybody who's on here, anybody that happens to watch this. What would you say, like one thing that they should do, before the end of the week? I usually say today, but I'll give them tomorrow too. What's one thing that they should do if they are really they have a business and they're looking to grow that business? What would one tip that you might give them?
Oh, that's a very hard question because I'm certain it's not one thing.
Mhm.
Um, any stage of the business that someone is in, that they are starting or growing or thinking about when do I exit, um, think very seriously about, am I the leader today that this business requires? And what is the business going to require a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road? And how do I become that person? And work on that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the things that holds a lot of businesses back is sometimes the ego of the founder, and their
It was also our
inability.
startup. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the inability to kind of say, there's people that are better than me, and I need to hire those people as opposed to bringing in others. Mhm.
That's right. They're worth every penny if you make good hires.
That's for sure, for sure. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank again, Chaz and Susie and Rick and Bruce and the whole team for putting this on. And look forward to seeing everybody on May 2nd. That's our next small business breakthrough. We're actually not going to do one in April. We're going to shift that to May 2nd because that is the SBA's Small Business Week.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to have that there. And we're actually going to be talking about the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program that Columbus State is recruiting for now. That is a program for entrepreneurs that are started, got some revenue, maybe a couple employees, and are looking to take that leap. It's a great program, and we're going to have some graduates from that program that are going to be part of this. And you can actually go back in the past. This is such a good program that we've done this twice before. This will be the third time we've done this with 10,000 small businesses, because I'm always fascinated with the entrepreneurs and what they've done and what they're doing. It's just amazing to see that. So encourage everyone to put it on your calendars, May 2nd, 11:30, and we'll be getting more information out. You can actually go to the registration site right now and register, and I think that's going to be excellent. And with that, I want you guys all to have a great day and a great week, and I hope that you get the most success that you can get. Thanks a lot. Have a great one.